How do you create a tactic for a small team on Football Manager? Well, first of all, you need to know what a small team is. And on Football Manager, I classify a small team as a team that is predicted to finish in the bottom half of any league in the game. So we have small teams in the Premier League, we have small teams in the Championship, we have small teams in League One, and even in La Liga and all those other leagues. So currently we're here with Bolton Wanderers and we want to create a tactic for Bolton, but I've already managed a different team in Salisbury. That's before I moved to Bolton Wanderers. I had some success with Salisbury, so I do have a bit of knowledge about how to create tactics for small teams in the game. Now, even though I've had some success at Salisbury, Bolton is a very, very different team. However, we're going to use Bolton as our example, even though I don't consider them as a small club. But since they're in Skybet League One, let's just go over with them and go over to the club tab. And under the club tab, if you go over to the overview of that club and click the league table, under the league table, you go back to competitions. And under competitions, if you look at Skybet League One, Bolton Wanderers to me are predicted to finish somewhere around 4th place. But if you look at when I took over the job from Salisbury, when I joined from Salisbury, they are in the bottom half of the league. So we have to create a different tactic that will help us survive relegation, of course, and also get into the top half of the league. With our expectations set, we need to go back to the squad tab and the basics. If you do not already have the idea of the basics, you have to look at your team first and what they're capable of, and that is going to help you build the tactic that you can use to move up the leagues. For a small team, it's really going to have very few player roles and player instructions or even team instructions that you can use, because the team is not an elite team that could try almost anything that you give to them to do on the pitch. So you have to be really, really careful. So I do like to rank the players by their ability to see who the top players are in my team. I can see that I have 2 solid defensive midfielders in Xavier Simons and Ethan Enahan. That already gives me an idea that I could play with 2 sitters. I also have a very, very good attacking midfielder here in Miles Peart-Harris. He has good passing and good vision for the lower leagues as well, 13 and 12. So he can actually play as a very, very good number 10 for me. We have Elijah Morrison as well, very good wing back and also very good winger. He has a lot of pace and acceleration. He can play as a fullback or as an attacking wing back. So off the top of my head, looking at the players that we have and their best positions, we already have an idea of the formation that we can go ahead and use. Now you can see that in the top ranks here, let me just go ahead and click Miles Peart-Harris. He can play as a central midfielder, so in case I want to play 4-3-3, that's possible. But I see here that I have only one winger, and the other winger that I have is currently injured is Shoboslik Sean. Not the very best pace, but he can do okay in the lower leagues as well, 12 and 13 or 13 and 13. So, but it just gives me a fair knowledge of what my team is able to do. And you can see that beyond that, we do not really have anybody else. But we see another 2 sitters here in Josh Sheehan and Aaron Marley. So they are also capable of playing for us. The only time I get to see a right back is all the way down at 3-star, where we have one right back in Josh Cogley. So this has already determined my formation for me. I will go with the 4-2-3-1 system. So if we go over to the tactics screen, we can go ahead and create a new tactic starting with a clean slate. I don't really use the presets, especially in this kind of scenario with Bolton Wanderers. There's going to be a lot of instructions that may not really be necessary for the team. So if I go over to in possession and then click all for formation and then go ahead and choose the 4-2-3-1 system, because we have decided to use the 4-2-3-1. In case I want my attacking midfielder to drop deep and settle in a 4-3-3 system, I can go ahead and play a 4-3-3 out of possession, but I will want to stick to the 4-2-3-1 again in possession and out of possession. I just like to start off that way. Go ahead and click confirm. Now straight away we can see that the attacking midfielders and the defensive midfielder are in position, but we have Peart-Harris to actually play as the central attacking midfielder. So you can drag him into position and then have him play. You can see he's already 4-star. Joe Randall is another very good attacking midfielder, but he can also play as a left-sided inside forward for me. So I can go ahead and drag him over to that role, because if you look at his player attributes, he's very suited to play as an inside forward on this other side. You can either ask him to play as an inside forward or an inverted winger, depending on the role that you want him to play, but he's very suited to playing both roles. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the inside forward for this one. For Morrison, since I have an inside winger playing ahead, I can now ask Morrison to play as a wing back instead of just a normal fullback. Since Sean is injured, I can bring in Terry Gill or somebody else to play on the right hand side, but it's temporary, of course. Everything about the tactic that you go on to create your first time is temporary. Do not really get bogged up on the roles that you're selecting at first. You have to actually watch the matches and see what is unfolding to know where you can go about tweaking things and changing things for your team. Now for the player roles, what I like to do is to go back to the players themselves that I have playing in that position. Go ahead and select the player role, for example, defensive midfielder, and make sure that the player attributes that are here are suitable for the player that is playing in that role. I do like movement. Since I already have a now hand playing as a deep line playmaker, I can go ahead and see the box-to-box playmaker. And if you're looking at this role for Simmons, he doesn't have stamina to play as a box-to-box midfielder, so there's no point asking him to play that role. I will go ahead and give him the defensive midfielder position or defensive midfielder role, and then go ahead and check in our hand. And if he has the attribute and stamina to play as a box-to-box midfielder, we will go ahead and do it. But he doesn't have off the ball, so there's no point giving him that duty as well. So for his case, I'll go back to the deep line playmaker or even the defensive midfielder as well. And there's no problem having two defensive midfielders in the team. You're playing as a small team, so you don't really need anything too expansive. These guys will go ahead and protect the defense, and then we have Morrison that's going to be getting forward and crossing the ball. So it offers some sort of protection for us in the team. In defense, I just like to keep them as normal centre backs. I don't really go for ball playing centre backs because they can get too wasteful in possession of the ball, and it doesn't actually help us keep possession. For the team instructions, it is split into categories. So you can go back to the overview here and then select overview. You can see final third zone, whether the middle, left flank or right flank. And you can also see the progression zone. You can also see the build-up zone. I will start for out of possession, starting with the build-up zone. That is going to take up all the way to the back. How do I want my team to play when we're building possession from the back? Now, in case you're using a team that is not very good at passing, for Bolton Wanderers, I do have two central defenders, so I can go ahead and ask them to play through the press. That is because central defenders are very capable of playing simple short passes among each other and then playing the ball out in very simple manner. The ball playing defender, however, is going to go for a long pass. So that is going to be good if you are going to bypass the press. But in our case, we're playing simple possession football, so we just want to keep the ball among ourselves and play it out very simply. You can also ask the goalkeeper to go short to enable that style of play. Will they play the ball to the centre backs? They can, but I want them to either choose the centre backs, but in case the centre backs are marked, I want them to go for the full backs instead. So I'm just going to leave the distribution on balance and allow the goalkeeper to decide. I will not also force the speed to be too quick. I just leave it like that for small teams. You don't always have to insert every instruction or pick any instruction that you see. For the progression phase, I do not touch any instruction in this particular category. That's because we're playing as a small team. It's actually important that you watch the matches and see what is happening. But if I come up against a team that is very slow, I could go again and ask my team to encourage dribbling. That way it's like we can run at the defense a bit more. But if it's not working and I notice that we're running into a brick wall, I can just go ahead and put it back on balance. That is the joy of managing a small team. You do not always have to pick every instruction. Most of these instructions, like play through, is going to be important when you're actually playing the match. You know where the opposition has a weakness. You can choose to either play through the middle or through the left or through the right hand side. In the final third, what I like to do is to discourage shooting from distance. But if it's not helping us, I will go ahead and leave everything unbalanced. For a possession-based style of play, I do go for walk the ball into the box instruction. Oh, that's on the right-hand side. But like I said, most of these instructions, they can just be holding your team back. So I tend to leave everything on standard and, of course, just to discourage. Crossing style is where you're going to choose whether you want to play low crosses or floated crosses or whip crosses. But for lower league teams, like I mentioned, I just leave everything blank. If I have a very tall striker, I will go for floated crosses. But if I notice that I want cutbacks to happen and I want my players to go all the way to the byline and then play a cutback into the center of the box, I do go for low crosses. But more often than not, even if you do not have a cross selected and then you set your fullback or your wing back to cross the ball from the byline, they will go ahead and play a cutback into the center of the box. Out of possession is also split into three categories. We have the high press, mid block, and the low block. And I usually start with the low block to see how we're going to defend when we are back to the wall. So when our backs are against the wall and then we are in a low block, I don't really try to force the cross engagement in any way. Sometimes I like to stop crosses. I notice that in many times on Football Manager, a lot of people go for invite crosses, but I don't really trust my center backs to head the ball away. So I just leave it on balance or I try to stop crosses if I notice that the opponent is very good at crossing. In the mid block, we only have to deal with the pressing trap, and I usually leave this unbalanced as well. In case I notice that when I'm playing against a team that is very good on the wings, I will go for showing them inside so they have to come inside and then we can defend from there. But if they have a very good number 10 or they have good inside forwards that are cutting inside, I tend to show them trap outside and then force them to go to the flanks. But for now, we're going to leave it unbalanced. For our high press, I do try to prevent the shot goalkeeper distribution as often as I can, but I notice that sometimes the goalkeeper plays the ball out anyway and my players struggle to actually win possession back. In that scenario, I go for just leaving it off and then leaving everything the way it is. Like I mentioned, the beauty of managing a small team on Football Manager is that you do not have to pick every instruction. So back to the overview then. For the line of engagement, I do go for the high press, but the defensive line, I usually just leave it on standard. For the defensive line behavior, I do leave it on balance. I don't really see the need to always step up more or drop back as often as we can. So just balance is good enough for small teams. The pressing, however, is usually set to more often trigger press. That way we can try to force the possession and force a turnover. For the defensive transition, I do go for the counter press. That is because when we lose possession of the ball, we have the ability to try and force a turnover and try to get it back. If we do not, then we have to get back into our defensive shape. But one important team instruction for the lower leagues that I notice is to get stuck in. If you're always just being so nice and not tackling enough, the opposition is going to run by you and have a field day with your defense. So forcing your players to get rough in the tackles is really one of the most important key elements of a lower league tactic. But all of these tactics and out of possession instructions work really well when you go ahead and apply opposition instructions with them. Now, for lower league teams, you may not really have the luxury of scouting the opposition all the time so you can see the opposition instructions. For opposition instructions, you always have to look at the opposition scout report to see what is important and how you can go about attacking them. For Norwich, they're a much bigger team than we are. They're in the Championship, so we're playing them in the FA Cup now. But in order for you to figure out how to do opposition instructions, I did go ahead and make a detailed video about how you can apply opposition instructions and guide your team to defend against the opposition. I will put a link in the description so you can check out the video next immediately after this one. And it's really important to try to use that to define how your team is going to defend tactically. But how to create a tactic for a small team, you have all the information at the back of your hand right now. Try to keep things simple. Choose the player roles that are suited to the players in your team. You do not always have to have too many team instructions. Maybe 3 to 5 team instructions are enough. As for the mentality, try to leave it on balance for most of the games that you're playing. But if you notice that you're coming up against a smaller team, you can go attacking and try to win the points. It's really, really important. But once you're done scoring all the goals, you don't just leave it on attacking. Try to come back to maybe cautious or defensive to try and grind out that victory.